From ferocious Chinese attack robots that threaten society, here are 10 of the most incredible military vehicles today. Number 10. Chinese attack robots. Starting off the list of the most incredible military vehicles is something that might surprise you. Believe it or not, China is apparently developing killer robots. While these attack robots might not look like the giant power suits from the Matrix, they're still pretty intense. They're also becoming more and more advanced as every year goes by. From automated guns that can choose their own targets to artificially intelligent drones, killer robots are on the rise in China and indeed the world. In fact, some people are so worried about the Chinese attack robots that activists have been calling for the world to create a treaty banning this type of technology before it's too late. This is because killer robots are no longer just something we see in the movies. They're being made. And before long, you might see some pretty crazy war machines stomping around on the battlefield. And if you think, well, I've heard this before and it's still a long way off, you'd be wrong. In 2016 alone, the world body held its first killer robot negotiations. That's how real killer robots are becoming. 4 years later, in 2020, there are not a lot of rules on the development of automated war machines. The future is definitely going to be one scary place. For example, take a look at the Lima 002 automated patrol robot being used in Singapore to enforce social distancing. We're literally about to enter the future, and not in a good way. Number 9. The Mi-24 attack helicopter. There's nothing quite as cool as an attack helicopter. Even just saying it sounds cool. And one of the best and most ferocious attack helicopters of all is the Mi-24 Hind, developed by Russia. It's been nicknamed the Flying Tank because of its ability to fire while still flying. The helicopter first entered the service back in the days of the Soviet Union in the late 1970s, and since then it's been deployed to at least 40 countries. There have been more than 3,500 of these helicopters produced, and believe it or not, they've been used in at least 40 different wars. And no, that's not even all the wars that have been going on since the 70s. The helicopter was designed to carry 8 combat troops while still being a gunship. The newest versions of the Mi-24 come armed with anti-tank missile systems so that they can engage with moving targets on the ground, even vehicles heavily armored. According to Air Force technology, this helicopter has a total of 6 suspension weapon units on the wingtips, making it absolutely deadly in any kind of combat. Number 8. ZUBR Class LCAC Hovercraft. The ZUBR Class LCAC Hovercraft looks like something out of a sci-fi movie. This is an enormous piece of machinery, known as a landing craft air cushion vehicle, or simply a hovercraft. It's 100% the biggest hovercraft known to man, and yes, it was introduced by the Russians. It came about in the 1990s and has been continuously modified to be deadlier and deadlier. It's currently being used by navies in Russia, Ukraine, and Greece, and it's not something you want to mess with. It has a cargo area of about 4,300 square feet and can carry at least 3 battle tanks or 10 armored personnel carriers, each loaded with 140 troops. When the LCAC hovercraft is loaded to capacity, it can still hit 50 miles per hour on the water. And because it's a hovercraft after all, this behemoth of a vehicle can easily maneuver over a 5-foot wall. Oh yeah, and it's fully loaded. This monster has multiple rocket launchers, several air missile defense systems, 2 30mm automatic gun mounts, 2 electric power plants on board, and an armored command post with sealed combat stations. If you want superiority on the water, your Navy needs a hovercraft. Number 7. Machine gun drone. Let's talk about superiority in the air. We already talked a bit about the killer robots being built by China, but there's a company in Turkey that has already developed a new machine gun drone for its military. It's one of the coolest military vehicles ever, even if it is fully automated. And out of all the concept drones, it's arguably the deadliest. This is the Songar drone, and it's like a souped-up quadcopter that uses 8 blades instead of 4. It also comes with a mounted machine gun and 200 rounds of deadly ammunition. It can shoot targets on the ground while flying innocently enough in the sky. Imagine what looks like a floating balloon in the distance suddenly raining down bullets right on your face. That's a weapon you don't have much defense against. It can currently hit a target from about 600 or 700 feet away, which is pretty impressive. That's about 2 football fields. However, that distance could be doubled very soon as software improves. According to Intelligent Living, the drone can even hit targets at night. because of course it can see in the dark. Number 6. The Barracuda-class submarine. The Barracuda-class submarine from the French company Naval Group is the newest sub to hit the waters. It was delivered to the French Armament Procurement Agency as recently as November 2020, and it's the newest piece of underwater hardware for the French Navy. It's also a nuclear-powered attack submarine that could basically destroy the world. These new submarines will be replacing the Rubis-class submarines, which were first introduced back in 1988. The new Barracuda program will be the backbone of the French submarine forces until probably 2060. That makes it the top submarine weapon system of the century. However, considering it's such new technology, we simply don't know everything about it. It definitely has the newest and most impressive navigational technology, as well as the best in communication. But it also probably has some seriously deadly weapons capabilities. Navy recognition has reported that the Barracuda submarine is giving the French Navy combat superiority probably for the first time in history, with a deep strike capability using MBDA naval cruise missiles. The submarine will also employ heavy torpedoes and MBDA SM-39 missiles. Basically, they can blow any less advanced aquatic vehicles straight out of the water. Number 5. The Apache Attack Helicopter. The Apache Attack Helicopter is the original bad boy in the sky. If the United States military had used these back in the Vietnam War, things might have been a little different. However, they weren't entered into service until 1984. But even all these years later, the Apache Attack Helicopter is one of the deadliest air machines ever. It's been exported all over the world to places like Japan and Egypt, and the United States military has 800 Apaches in service at least. The vehicle was used in Operation Desert Storm, and it's also been used in many peacekeeping operations around the world. The Apache Attack Helicopter has been upgraded since its original introduction. In 1997, the Apache Longbow was introduced to the United States Army. Think of it like an even more brutal version of the original Apache. The Longbow came fitted with a Longbow Hellfire missile system, which is about as devastating as it sounds. Number 4. The T-14 Armata Super Tank. The T-14 Armata is a super tank. It's also a newly developed weapon from the Russian military. It has technological upgrades that allegedly make it more efficient and much scarier than any of the tanks being used by the NATO countries. Even CNET has reported that the Armata tank is the most revolutionary tank in a full generation. What makes it so incredible? Well, it's deadly. It comes with a fully automated and unmanned turret, which is a first for tank operations. This means that it can operate with a crew of only 3 people, while most of the tank runs automatically. The deputy designer of the tank explained to the media in 2015 that for the crew manning the vehicle, it's just like playing a video game. That's how simplistic and easy the controls are. But let's talk about the cannon for a minute. The main armament is a TA-82-1M 125mm smoothbore cannon that can fire 10 to 12 rounds each minute. A single one of these tanks in World War II would probably have wiped out the entire German army. The turret is also designed so that it can be replaced with an even larger 154mm cannon that can overmatch any gun or armor existing in a NATO tank. Number 3. Force Protection Ocelot. The Force Protection Ocelot, also known as the Foxhound, is one of the coolest patrol vehicles ever. It's not a big and fancy war machine like a sub or a tank, but it's still a critical part of ground operations. It's also incredible. Just look at the armor on this beast. It was first designed to protect British forces against the threats they faced in Afghanistan. However, the vehicle was so agile and versatile that it became a mainstay in the Army. It's lighter and smaller than most other patrol vehicles, with a top speed of 70 miles per hour and an armor plating that protects against most improvised explosives. If you're driving through an area riddled with mines, this is the vehicle you want to be inside of. It has all of the newest technology, and it honestly just looks so cool. Number 2. The GUSTAV gun. Let's take a quick trip back in time to the GUSTAV gun, also known as the railway gun. This weapon of moderate destruction was crafted back in the 1930s as the biggest piece of siege artillery in the history of humankind. To this day, the GUSTAV gun is the biggest gun that has ever been fired. It was so enormous that it weighed 1,490 tons and fired shells that themselves weighed 7.7 tons. It had a range of about 30 miles and was designed with the intention of destroying French forces. However, this gun was another one of Hitler's horrible ideas. It took a ridiculous amount of manpower just to load and fire the weapon, and after just a single battle, it was deemed pretty much useless. The weapon had to be moved on a special track, the enormous barrel on it got worn out way too quickly, and it cost the Nazis an absolute fortune to maintain without doing much destroying in the end. Number 1. The fastest amphibious vehicle ever. China has built the fastest amphibious assault vehicle ever. It's being called the VN-18, and it can travel at preposterous speeds both across land and across the water. On ground, it can go about 40 miles per hour. But where it really shines is on the water, skimming the surface at roughly 30 miles per hour. That's comparable to a car speeding down the highway doing 90. The reason this is so impressive is that most amphibious attack vehicles are super slow on the water, and this machine could give China the advantage in the aquatics market. The VN-18 allegedly comes equipped with a cannon and a machine gun, and it can carry 14 troops. The design is aluminum, and the engine can produce roughly 1,600 horsepower. This kind of raw HP is usually reserved for heavy tanks, not for assault vehicles. With such intense power and the ability to lift its tracks and wheels up into its body, the VN-18 can skim across a lake or channel in a few seconds flat. Which of these amazing attack vehicles would you love to take for a spin? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and be sure to subscribe for more awesome videos. See you again next time right here on American Eye.